This video is going to be about woodland planting and the tips and tricks of getting a good amount of plant material carpeting underneath trees. And what you've got to remember is how much shade does your tree actually give to your plant material that's growing underneath it. Hi, I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. I am going to go into more depth about all of these plants and how I would use them, but let's first go to somewhere which has the most wonderful woodland walk, and that is the Chelsea Physic Garden, where I visited earlier this year. So this is an area of shade which is slightly drier. You've got quite a lot of trees and shrubs creating the shade, but also absorbing a lot of the moisture. You've got a good woodlander here of Galium odoratum. It can get around a little bit, but if you just pull it out, it's perfectly fine. We have beautiful ferns, lovely shape, they are fantastic. Got Osmunda at the back there. And then the yellow behind the shrub here is Chenopodium. Now that can seed around, do be careful with that, but it's good for this sort of area. When it snaps open, it has an orange sap to it. That tends to stain. It doesn't do any harm to you, it doesn't burn you or anything, but it might stain clothing, so that's something else to be aware of. And just on the far side there is a very interesting plant called Paris, and that has 4 leaves, and then up from that comes this beautiful green flower with a dark centre. Really fascinating type of plant. Once they get established, they will then colonize. And when you have areas like this of dry shade, you know, you've got an edging stone here, that's keeping it slightly more contained, but you do need to use a few things that are a little bit more rampant. Otherwise you will just end up with bare earth and nothing there at all. So this is one of those places where you've got to use just slightly more thuggy plants. Realistically, when you are planting something that's in a shady area or a little bit off the beaten track in your garden, you want spreaders because you don't want to have them to be working in there all the time and getting rid of the unwanted plants, which most people call weeds. If you're trying to get that slightly more exotic jungle type look, then you can utilize this narrow-leaved Ophiopogon because it makes a really good mat. And then if you make decent sized holes in between, you can put in things like this Podophyllum Spotty Dotty'. Look at this beautiful big leaf, and they just go out on a flat top, and they have wonderful flowers which are not quite out yet. This is a cracking plant, totally hardy in the UK as long as you mulch over the crowns. And then something which is great and is a lovely thing is the dead nettle there, Lamium orvala, the tall one with lovely big pink flowers and that amazing marking down the throats of the flower itself. So all of this comes out of this wonderful Ophiopogon, and then you get these eruptions of big flower, you get these eruptions of big leaf contrast, and that's what you need to do. Narrow leaves, big leaves. That's the key to having good jungle-like woodland planting. One of the things I always go on about is contrast. This is very obvious. Narrow leaves, big round flat leaves. You can have colour. It doesn't matter if these were just plain green, it would still be a good contrast. Think about the contrasts. If you've got a little bit more room to play with, you can consider the fact that you've got layering. So some of the planting in here has been out and gone over, so the bluebells are just dying back, the arums are just dying back. But up come these amazing Smyrniums, dotted around because that's where they've seeded themselves. There are yellow poppies coming up, and again we've got contrast. We've got huge big round leaves and then the yellow. We've got beautiful tree peony going down. You know, you look through a bit of height, but then you look down into some more interesting Lamiastrum with its silvers. So it's all about contrast and height and down and depth through to the back of the area. With an area like this underneath a sprawling Cotoneaster, there is not an awful lot of light, and you've got to be really realistic about the fact that if there will only be 1, 2, maybe 3 varieties of plants that are going to like it. So either you carp it completely in 1 or 2 varieties, or you have carpeting and ribbons of that going through with other plant material coming over. There is Helleborus in here, there is the Ophiopogon, there is Pachyphragma, and then occasionally the odd bulb that is managing to get through. Gnarled old trees and the stems of the actual shrubs that are growing are more the focal point than the actual ground cover is. So be realistic when you have somewhere so dry, so harsh to grow in. Use what survives. Don't try to do something that is going to be really difficult to look after. I have a selection of plant material here that I would use as carpeting, maybe a little bit of height underneath shade. Now, if I'm the tree here and I am creating a huge amount of shade over the top of this, how much light is going to penetrate underneath that tree? Am I a conifer, for instance, or a fully evergreen tree, therefore doing dense shade? Or am I a deciduous tree, just giving you a little bit of lighter, dappled light coming underneath? Those are the things you've got to remember when you're planting underneath trees. The plant material I've got here, some of it will become quite carpeting, some of it will be more upright, but perfectly possible to grow in a shady area. What do you want? Do you want it completely ground covering so you don't get any unwanted plant material in there? In which case you go for things which are going to carpet and run around, like this Maianthemum. With this Maianthemum stellatum, beautiful starry white flowers, and it is going to create mats, and that will just give you a sea of green foliage, which is what you want. It will smother out other plant material. If that's the sort of look you're wanting to go for, that is one that is really good. Another one, this one, the Lamium here, the Lamium Beacon Silver, is another one of these ones which will just gradually creep its way through. It does flower, so you get wonderful dark pink flowers on this a little bit later in the season, and then you get this fabulous silver foliage which just goes off and it will meander, and you could have that and that together and you'd have a really good tapestry, because the Lamium has got that silver foliage with a little bit of a dark line around it, and you've got this lovely light green, and they work well together. Sometimes you just need 3 plants that will work together and give you a good carpet, and that is all you need. But other times you want a little bit of height. So if you're wanting something that gives you good foliage for the front, the Tellimas are great. Tellima grandiflora, and this is the Rubra Group. So these flowers will come up, they'll flop a little bit, that's absolutely fine, but the foliage stays lower. They will seed a little bit, so that's also something that is great in a woodland area, something that seeds around. Now these 3 would work really well together. If you wanted a little bit more height, a little bit further back, then you can go for the beautiful Ranunculus here. This is a white flowered buttercup, but this needs a little bit more dampness in the soil. The other 3 I've spoken about will take it a little bit drier. So this Ranunculus takes it a little bit damper. You have the foliage at the bottom, and then the flowers go up, and they go up, and they go up, they go up. Ranunculus aconitifolius, the true species of the white flowered buttercup. Really great as a woodlander, but for damper woodland. And it's going to get somewhere around about 2 feet tall with its flowers, so that is good, and then you get the foliage staying later. If you want an umbelliferae, there are lots of umbelliferaes which are great for shady areas and just give you spot plants in amongst your ground cover. Then this pink one here, Chaerophyllum, hirsutum, roseum, and again looks short at the moment, but it's going to go up, again going to get to about 2 feet, probably 60 centimeters, and that is great. It's just starting to flower, so that is a late spring, early summer flower, exactly the same sort of time of flowering as the Ranunculus, but they would just give you that little bit of height. You could have them spot planted in amongst your ground cover so that they come up, do their stuff, and then they die back down, and then the ground cover is keeping going. This Galium is wonderful. This is a Galium people don't grow a lot of. This is Galium stipulata. Lovely dark stems on here, beautiful foliage, very cut and divided, and it again is going to go up to somewhere just under 3 feet. That is something that is really good. So 3 feet, 90 centimetres, very upright, good for any sort of shady spot. Again, this plant is just fabulous for giving you some height for later on in the season. And with these fabulous cut foliage, Galium stipulata is one to look out for. Starts with a slightly pink bud and then opens up to a really lovely soft white flower on the end of it. If you want something to take over a little bit and self-seed around, then this Mitella is something that is really good. Now we have this Mitella listed as Bruae, but I've been told it isn't that form, but no one can tell me exactly what it is. So in the UK, this particular Mitella is sold as Bruae. It is got wonderful little black seeds here, and if you just hit it like that, you will see seed going all over the place. This is a fabulous self-seeder. The foliage stays as a lovely tight mat all the way around. Now, sometimes people don't like self-seeders, but if you're going into that harsh area underneath trees, you need plants that will survive. And once this is self-seeded and you've got lots of little colonies going, then just deadhead. As soon as you deadhead, you don't get much more. And when they initially come up, the plants are very easy to get rid of. This is not a deep-rooted plant, so therefore getting rid of it is not too difficult. But again, that is fabulous. This wonderful pale green flower head over a mat of dark green is such a good contrast. So all of these will grow, and you could easily grow these together. You would have really wonderful carpeting and mat forming. You'd have taller plant material coming up and flowering slightly later. I hope that's introduced you to one or two different plants and gives you some idea. Just remember, tree here, how much shade are they actually getting? That's the key thing. And how much water are they all getting? So this one needed moisture, the rest of them will be happy in leaf litter, and occasionally you might just have to give the odd plant of water, especially when you're getting them established. And then after that, once they've got their roots in, they will be happy plants. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.